It's not every sermon that begins with a car commercial, but this one does. I got the idea for this week's topic after my good friend Rick sent me this.
To test just how much attention the attention-stealing design of the new Skoda Fabia actually steals, we left one parked on this ordinary road in West London. We wanted to see if its sharp crystalline shapes, bold lines, and lower, wider profile would attract the desired level of attention. Will the 17-inch black alloy wheels stop passers-by in their tracks? Will the angular headlights attract the attention of other road users? Will a crowd gather to check out its fresh, sporty look? Well, not quite. But did the attention-stealing design distract you from noticing that the entire street has been changing right before your very eyes? Don't believe us? Have another look. Did you spot the van changing to a taxi? How about the scooter changing to a pair of bicycles? Or the lady holding a pig? Let alone the fact that the entire street is now completely different. Didn't think so.
The ad's actually based on a scientific study on selective attention, updated in this British video about suicide. Watch. Yes, we desperately need to pay more attention to the important things, socially, emotionally, and spiritually. And the biggest barrier to that is distraction. As the scientific study and those commercials point out, we miss so much when we're focused on the wrong stuff. And that's a problem for most of us. Distraction is when our eyes and minds are fixed on places, people, and priorities that blind us to what really counts. As we're about to see, sometimes distraction just happens, but other times it's a deliberate tactic used against us, especially in the spiritual realm. Just ask Jesus.
Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only."
To do the important work of his Father, Jesus had to avoid the distractions that competed for his loyalty and attention, the same things that plague us, the lure of pride, power, and possessions. And he overcame because his focus was on God and serving him alone. But it's no accident the distraction set in just as Jesus was set to begin his public ministry. Right after that, he called his 12 disciples, seemingly the most unqualified dozen ever assembled for the launch of a global startup, and he preached about a new way of life, the kingdom of God, and how to live in it. We tend to focus on the healings, but even that is a distraction. The real priority of Jesus is holiness and eternal hope. What did Jesus focus on?
Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment.
I'm going to look at you like that.
And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
But in the very next chapter, Jesus rips the religious leaders for being distracted by more minor issues and not seeing and addressing the important things right in front of them.
You hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides! You strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence.
Wow, greed and self-indulgence, getting hung up on the rules, and putting your attention on stupid stuff while people suffer. Sounds an awful lot like us. We say we exist as a church to glorify God, build up one another, and reach out with the life-changing message of Jesus. But we and other churches spend too much time seeking glory and credit for ourselves, building up our own egos and reputations, and dying out instead of reaching out. A lot of that is because we and other Christians are totally distracted by things like the health and wealth gospel, the social aspects of church traditions that divide us instead of bringing believers together, and petty arguments over petty issues like what translation of the Bible we should use, how often communion should be held, and what kind of worship style we should have. And all the while, people are going hungry and homeless, and addictions are rampant. Mental health issues are at crisis levels, racism is on the rise, and loneliness and isolation are epidemic. We can't solve those problems, but we can pray, volunteer, and give our money to individuals and churches that are on the front lines. But nothing will change until we ditch spiritual distractions and pay attention to the proper priorities. Regrettably, that spiritual distraction is just an extension of how we live the rest of our lives, bombarded by the interruptions and intrusions of technology. Like most people, we tend to think there's nothing we can do about that. But according to the latest research, technology is a symptom of distraction, not the source. The real problem is in your heart and in your brain, and you have more control than you think. First, it's important to know that since the brain can't process everything at once, it sets priorities. So if you walk into a party and there's lots going on, your brain decides what you need to know right away, what can wait, and what you can forget immediately. It acts like a spotlight, highlighting the most important stuff. And while that's happening, two areas of the brain are in a constant fight between focus and distraction. The problem is, that takes a lot out of us mentally. Like money or your energy level, attention is a limited resource. You only have so much for each day. But now that 9 to 5 has been replaced by 24/7, we take our work and social lives everywhere. We're constantly bombarded by texts, emails, and notifications, day and night. But science says every one of those micro distractions takes mental effort, and it all adds up. Even the switching back to what you were doing before each interruption takes brain power. So researchers say by the end of the day, we're often so depleted we have no focus or energy for the bigger, more important decisions that must be made. That's one of the reasons so many of us are stressed and overwhelmed. That means that how you handle your phone, your computer, and other devices is a spiritual issue. Anything that takes our focus off God and His priorities is a problem that needs to be addressed. Now, remember when I said that technology is a symptom of distraction and not the source? That the real problem is in here and not in here? Well, here's why. Your cell phone and computer are what experts call external triggers. You get distracted whenever something comes in. But researchers say the much bigger issue is our internal triggers. A key finding is that we're most vulnerable to distraction when we want to escape an uncomfortable sensation, like boredom, loneliness, anxiety, uncertainty, stress, or fatigue. If we don't address those inner triggers, we'll always find ways to distract ourselves with external ones, like checking email, binging movies, or playing video games. Anything not to have to face those uncomfortable feelings. In fact, the reason our devices are so tempting is because of something called the variable reward principle. You never know what's going to come up. Scientists say it's no different from pulling the lever of a slot machine over and over. You're always hoping for something good. So here too, distraction is a spiritual issue. If we're empty inside, chances are good we're not going to fill that void with all the right stuff. So we have to get our external triggers like technology under control so we can focus on what's going on inside, things that will make us happier and draw us closer to God and the kind of life He wants us to live. Pay attention to what makes you anxious, bored, or stressed, what time of day or night those feelings usually show up, and what helps you move past those things. As one expert says, the antidote to distraction is planning. It's like temptation. If you wait until the chocolate cake is on your fork, it's too late to fight the battle. So if you know the times and circumstances that give you trouble, plan to be around supportive people at critical times. The bottom line is, technology is not the villain. We are the problem, and we need to take full responsibility. Nobody makes us check our phone 80 times a day. We do that because the root cause is our desire to avoid or alleviate all those negative feelings. And there are more spiritual ways to do that: prayer, meditation, serving others. But we are going to have far less inclination and energy to do those things if we are always depleted because of electronic distraction. For starters, spiritual distraction makes us miss the doors God has already opened for us, and it's easy to get hurt. Looking too far ahead makes us oblivious to the threats right in front of us. And even then, we don't learn our lesson about distraction. And as this Brazilian TV host shows us, distraction, like pride, goes before a fall. But hey, while we're doing the wedding, why not work in a baptism? After all we have to do to get into trouble is to be focused in the wrong direction so we can no longer see where we're supposed to be heading. Sometimes that spiritual distraction comes from envying what others have or what they're doing. Or we get so preoccupied with our own selfish pursuits that we hit a huge spiritual obstacle. When there are real threats in front of us, we simply can't afford to have our heads and guards down. Simply put, we have to be ready to act when God gives us our cue. Okay, so we've talked about what distraction is, where it comes from, and what it does to us, so let's look some more at what we can do to prevent it. And to do that, we're going to learn some lessons from an artful dodger and a dog. This is writer Adam Green and pickpocket Apollo Robbins. Adam's watch is vulnerable too.
But if I may see your hand. So yours doesn't come over the end of the wrist, but if you close your hand kind of tight, it creates a little bit of tension so your wrist gets wider. At the same time, while you're focused on your watch, you lost the cell phone that's in your front pocket. Check your front pocket, see if it's still there.
It is.
So that's what it looks like. That's the watch steal. That was a very fast process for a watch steal. Something that's slower that you can do is as I'm shaking someone's hand and I'm holding here, I can open their watch in a handshake. The watch is virtually loose. The reason why I can't feel it is because with these 3 fingers, I hold the watch closed. So they perceive that the watch is still fastened. What I can also do is now at this point, they have control, and that's a big thing, is them having the illusion that they're in control. So if I'm at this point, I say, your watch is safe. Do you have anything in this pocket? But now, when I come across, you see my arm hits here, but I flipped out the watch so that I can drop it in this outside jacket pocket. When I come back, I say, oh, you were wearing a watch a while ago. They've never let go of my hand. My other hand was over here, so it seems like I would have had a third hand in order to be able to steal that watch, and they think that they're in control.
The key to that control, no matter what the target, is directing attention.
But as long as I'm keeping eye contact with you, it allows me to raise your suspicion level. Same thing, if I go here and I keep eye contact with you all the way, it's rather suspicious and you keep very focused on me. But if I want to get underneath that, I can break your eye contact as I go into the space and share a common view with you, like a confluence of looking at something. And now I'm very close inside your space. Now, if I don't want you to focus on this anymore, I can just look at you, and that draws your attention up into this triangle. And you're less interested in what's happening here, but allows me to do things here while your focus is here. You've got this spotlight that just moves back and forth. If you think about where the spotlight is, the dark space around that spotlight is where I dance. So basically, I just play in the dark around where your attention is moving.
Satan plays in the dark too. He uses misdirection, gives us the illusion of control, and gets close enough to steal from us, whether it's our integrity, our confidence, or our joy. The best defense is to keep our distance and avoid distraction. We can also learn from animal trainer Zach George and his highly distractible friend, Moosey. This reminds me of my relationship with God.
So go ahead and get his attention on you, and now ask him to lie down.
Moosey, down, 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 Moosey.
Too much of a distraction there. And again, this is intentional, because he needs to listen to you no matter what.
But we don't listen to our master no matter what. Thankfully, we can be trained out of that, and the first step is the eye contact we just talked about.
Can I work with him for a moment?
Yep.
Stay. Good correction. Stay. Up here, look at me, please. Yes, good. I'm gonna give him a bunch of tiny treats right there, just to let him know that was a great decision.
When we keep our eyes on God, He does reward us with incentives to keep going.
And look how tight their training bubble is. See how close he has to be right now? That's fine, because dogs are more likely to listen to you when you're super close. That was awesome. Good job. That was wonderful.
So you see, don't look at distractions or let them get close, but keep your eyes on Jesus and stay tight with Him. The closer you are, the more focused and obedient you become. In the Message version, Hebrews 12 says, "Keep your eyes on Jesus, who began and finished this race we're in. Study how He did it. Because He never lost sight of where He was headed, He could put up with anything, the cross, shame, whatever. And now He's there in the place of honor, right beside God. When you find yourselves flagging in your faith, go over that story again. That will shoot adrenaline into your souls. Others have suffered far worse than you, to say nothing of what Jesus went through, so don't feel sorry for yourselves." And in James we read, "Resist the devil and he'll run from you. Come close to God and God will come close to you. Purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. But humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up in honor. Don't fall for the distractions. So yeah, we gotta be serious. But we also have to remember we're in a training program just like that dog. And I was reminded of that recently listening to a monk, a guy who's been a friar for 12 years. Now, in all that time, he has spent 4 hours every day in prayer and meditation, 2 of those hours in silent prayer. And yet to this day, he gets distracted. So much so, he went to his spiritual advisor and said, I don't understand. I spent last night 45 minutes distracted, focused, distracted, focused. I had to continually go back to the face of Jesus. The older man listened and said, let me get this straight. You spent 45 minutes continually going back to the Lord? Wow, that's a commitment. That grace-filled response gave the monk hope, and it's the same with us. We do not castigate our kids when they're learning to walk and they fall. Instead, we cheer them on because we love them and we know there's joy in the process as they reach out to us. And that's the way God looks at us. So don't beat yourself up. But don't give up either. Make a commitment to keep moving closer to God. And before you know it, you'll be walking the way you should. Hopefully without a cell phone in your hands. Block out and lock out the distractions of this world, and you'll be able to do what God wants, all in and full out. So take distraction action this week.